broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tracy Nyer. I'm with the Virginia SBDC. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally at 27 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. Today's topic is digital marketing in 2020. All of our webinars are presented by Ray Sidney-Smith, a digital marketing strategist and president of W3 Consulting. He's also the author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Mobile Small Business Marketing Small Business Strategy Explained. Ray is also a small business advisor, a Google Small Business Advisor, Evernote Certified Consultant, and Hootsuite Global Brand Ambassador. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window, and Ray will do his best to answer them. Here's Ray Sidney-Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here on the Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. As Tracy said, today we're talking about digital marketing, talking about the trends for 2020. We're starting a new decade, and that's really exciting. I wanted to just a couple of housekeeping items to cover. One, if you have questions, feel free to ask them now. Tracy, as she said, has the question panels open, so you can ask questions. This is usually the best time to ask those questions. And then afterward, I will have my email address on the final slide, and so you can contact me if you have any direct questions that I haven't been able to answer during our time together today. And then, of course, you can always ask questions on Twitter. I'm a Twitter fan. Maybe fanatic is the right word, but I'm a Twitter fan. So find us at W3 Consulting and hashtag that Beyond Google, and I'll be able to know that this is about one of the webinars and give me a little bit more context to be able to help you. And of course, finally, follow at Virginia SBDC so that you can keep up to date on future webinars in the Beyond Google webinar series, but also all the other programs that they have going on and information they're sharing throughout the year throughout the state. So with that, today's agenda is very, very simple. I'm going to cover a wide variety of marketing trends that I have been paying attention to over the last several years. If you've been following our, predictions and review and predictions webinars over the last years, I think we started in 2015 now. I think this is our fifth or sixth year doing this. What we usually do is do kind of a year in review and then predictions for the coming year. I'm really going to stick to covering maybe some of the review within the predictions and kind of watching trends for 2020. So I'm not going to do sort of the bifurcated agenda that I normally do, but I really want to pay attention to a lot of the marketing trends that are happening. I had so many that I wanted to talk about today. I had to cut many of them out. So this is kind of the few that I could fit into the time we have together today. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, and Tracy can poke in if necessary throughout if there are things that are pertinent to what I'm specifically talking about at that moment. So let's get started with regard to really what the tenor of the coming year is going to be like. And I wanted everybody to kind of have a universal or unifying theme for 2020. And it's really kind of the theme for the upcoming decade. I really believe that the three fundamental pieces that we're coming toward are going to really drive forward the next decade worth of marketing in the small business arena. And this really comes down to three different things: moments, comments, and community. And some of them are more important than others, and I'll kind of parse these apart for you so you have a better understanding. One is moments, and this really comes down to the micro moments model that has been proffered by Google and the Think with Google team. And really it comes down to four different types of what they call micro moments. And micro moments are defined as an intent-rich moment when a person turns to a device to act on a need. That is the four needs: to know, to go, to do, or to buy. And in your small business, your real goal is to then to figure out when these micro moments happen, or when these moments happen, what do you need to provide to that potential customer, that current customer, or that past customer in order to be able to fulfill that need that they have to know, go, do, or buy. And so moments are going to be really important for both content generation and for purchase opportunities for sales. And then there comes to the comments space, and comments is really about conversation, really generating conversation. And so increasing the goal for comments is going to be something that over the next decade, I think small business owners especially are going to have to really focus on over the traditional marks of social media success and other kinds of digital success, which is kind of the like button and the advent of the like button with Facebook and so on and so forth. So Facebook likes and Instagram hearts and all of these other sort of superficial notions of engagement are going to go away, and we're going to actually start leveling up to greater levels of engagement, and that is generating conversation. And finally, community. Community, as I've talked about on many webinars before, is all about this fundamental triumvirate of listening, speaking, and connecting. This idea of contribution into a group of people, and you as the business owner as the leader of that community. And people can be a part of many different communities, right? Your family is a community. You may go to church, and that church is a community. You go to work, that's a community. You have social groups, those are communities. And so people are very comfortable with being in many different types of communities, and your business will be stronger if you're able to create and coordinate better as a community. You'll be able to survive upcoming recessions. You'll be able to survive all kinds of environments where business is not going to be as great, but you'll survive because of community. So it's really important over the next decade to really think about this from the moments, comments, and community theme perspective. So with that in mind, let's talk about what's going to happen in 2020 as I've watched the major trends happening in small business marketing and digital marketing as a whole. And really what we're seeing, first and foremost, is something that I've talked about for years and years. I wrote about it in Solo Mo Success, and I still stand on it, which is that we have a vast majority of the human population is now connected to one another by mobile devices. And what we're seeing is that we have saturated the email environment, and email marketing is still a very, very powerful form of marketing. So don't get me wrong here, and I'll explain that in a moment. But what we really have is that most people are connected to one another today through these little computers that sit in their hands, 80 to 90% of their day, or in their pockets or purses. And we need to start figuring out what is the easiest possible way to connect with them. And it turns out it's been around since pretty much the advent of the cell phone. And that is SMS and MMS marketing. That is text message marketing, where you're sending text and video and pictures back and forth between consumers. We're seeing more and more digital marketers take this, what is seemingly a very basic technology, and really starting to take advantage of it. And so we will see more and more people setting up marketing strategy campaigns. You can see like the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world and others in that space who are really, really bullish on SMS and MMS marketing. I have been a huge advocate for it for many more years than those guys. But the reality is that if you are interested in becoming interested in getting into someone's inbox, I think a very important inbox to be thinking about getting into beyond just an email inbox is first getting into their SMS inbox. And so this can't be spammy. This needs to be, you need to make sure that you get permission in order to be able to do this. But at the end of the day, the SMS or MMS inboxes, when someone gets a text message, they open it. By and large, it's like 90+% open rates for sending a text message. So can you get someone to give you permission, either in your retail environment or in your interactions with them one-to-one, to have them go ahead and give you permission to be able to send them initial messages for starting engagement? And this really means it could be a number of different things. For a service-based business, that may mean sending a link via SMS so that they can quickly receive that link, go on with their day, and then when they have time, click on that link and start another interaction with the business. That can include signing up for an email list. It could be downloading a particular document or watching a video about the business to get more information and to see a promotion about the business. So think creatively about ways in which you can start the engagement with people through SMS and text messaging, and then using that as a transactional marketing technique as well. So getting a text message reminder about an upcoming appointment, being able to send promotion and deals to people while they're out and about so that they might step into your retail store because it's at the right time and place in which you know that they're going to be congregating in your locale. So be very mindful of SMS and MMS marketing as really a place where in 2020, the technology's here now. We're seeing a lot of integration between all of these things. RCS, the real-time communication system format is being embraced by Google and the major telecoms. We really are at that place where the nexus of all of the right pieces have come together, and so take advantage of it. Next up is something that I talked about last year, and it continues to be a very, very big trend as we move into 2020, which is really live chat and bots. This is actually two different pieces of the puzzle that is mostly confused. So let me parse it apart for you, which is live chat is actually two different things. One is the ability for you to be able to implement a chat functionality on your website so that you're able to put a little, chat icon on your website. Someone can click on it, or they can be prompted to open a conversation with a live agent. That could be you or your staff, or you can hire someone to do this, and they would then have a ready, immediate, real person to communicate with when they land on a website. This increases sales, obviously, because people like talking to people. It reduces their need to poke around your website and get lost, because you or your staff most likely know exactly where content is on the website. So you can send information to them and say, this is where you need to go right now to get that information. And so that's one piece, is the live chat piece on your website. But there's a whole other piece to this, which is live chat and bots. And what bots really are is artificial intelligence, or really more accurately, machine learning. And machine learning, all it means is that there's a machine involved in being able to do some logic and to be able to take in inputs and give outputs without you having to write the program specifically for what they should do. So you can basically say, when someone says X, I want you to, through your logic, give them Y and Z or whatnot. And the machine learning involved is very, very powerful. And I'm going to talk about this quite a bit more as we make our way through our time together, because as you see more artificial intelligence and machine learning available on a small business level, that being easily done, is practical to be able to implement. It's affordable or free in many cases. And so we're seeing a lot more opportunity there for small businesses to embrace it, and it will increase profitability. It'll increase sales and profitability. And so we need to embrace it, and you need to start thinking about how you can implement this stuff. It's not difficult once you start getting an idea around the various tools available for these types of things to be done. So then we take that to kind of the next level, which is that you may not have a person come to your website before they engage in a conversation about you. You may do a small digital advertising campaign, or you may be able to put out social media content and engage those people in a live chat, bot-based communication that happens through one of the major chat tools, one of the major messaging platforms. The Facebook Messenger, there's WhatsApp, there's a Viber, there is Telegram, there's WeChat. There's many, many of these messenger platforms that are out there. They're owned by fairly large conglomerates, and or in the case of Telegram, they're an open source platform that is a free open source platform, but you can actually engage with your customers in this kind of one-to-one way that can be either live human interacted or bot related, that is machine learning based, and be able to increase your engagement and therefore increase your lead generation, increase sales, and increase retention, customer retention over time. So having repeat customers be able to be the supporting foundation for the business. So really think about how you're going to use live chat and bots as well as messaging to create a more intimate relationship with customers. And again, this comes down to community. Maybe you want to start a Facebook Messenger group chat with your potential customers, and they can then have this conversation together and with you, and then ultimately they become a part of a new community, right? That is when they become an actual customer, they get moved into some other space where then you can have more intimate relations with those people. That is more private communications, or just more time with them. So you may spend less time on the potential customers, and they're there to be able to kind of talk amongst themselves. But once they reach that next level, now you have more time to spend with them because they're actually paying you for your time and for your energy, and you can give them more of your attention. This takes us to the idea of programmatic advertising. And what I talked about before was you may do some level of digital advertising or social media advertising that brings people to something like an automated bot, a chat bot of some kind that is facilitating some level of conversation with your potential audience, to your audience or to your target audience, and then making them a lead, which will then hopefully bring them closer to the sale. Well, if you can do that in such a way where you used, again, AI and machine learning, you then have programmatic advertising. That is, you're running advertising campaigns where, in essence, the machine is deciding what advertising creative, that is images, text, video, or otherwise, gets produced on a wide variety of different types of platforms, whether that be desktop or mobile or TV or you name it, radio. It decides on how that all gets spread out. And then it, through its little algorithm, not little because it's sometimes thousands of lines of code that it's generating on the fly, it produces the appropriate mix to get you the best output in terms of whatever you want. Your goal could be leads, it could be some other type of conversion, but it's basically designed to be able to give you the best outcomes for the dollars that you're paying. So programmatic advertising is especially for those who are stable businesses. They know what they're doing already in terms of their current social media content, their current content marketing. They have a strong sales method in place, and they're capable of converting people that come to their website or make first contact with them, and they want to be able to level up. Okay, so if you're already an existing business, programmatic is a way to get to that next level. Most startups are not going to be able to start in the programmatic advertising space. You don't have enough data. You don't have enough, expertise in just native advertising to begin with to be able to then know what kind of ad creative is going to be good for you going forward. So just keep programmatic in the next level category, that if you're an existing business, you've been in business for 3 to 5 years, but you've been rocking it with the social media and with advertising, some level of advertising, and seeing some success there, programmatic then can help you level up, okay? So sticking on digital ads, understand that for a lot of people, they come to me and say, Facebook ads are getting more expensive. They just keep edging me out in terms of the amount of money that I can spend there. And what I've seen actually over the course of certainly the past 3 years is that Facebook definitely has been getting more expensive, but at the same time, digital ads are necessary now. It's not like you can just do social media and be successful. To do social media means to do social media content marketing with advertising, social advertising built into it. It's just not possible to go from 0 to the number you need in terms of followers, engagement, and conversion without having the two mixed together. So it's necessary, and I hate to give good people bad news, but you have to spend money in 2020 in order to be able to get seen by the requisite amount of people to be able to get the outcomes you need, the conversions you need to have sustainable social marketing. That said, digital ads are still incredibly undervalued. If you want to go put a print ad in a general, circulation periodical or publication, you're gonna spend a lot more money there, and it's a scattershot approach, right? It's a shotgun approach. You're gonna shoot a lot of different content all over the place, and in reality, with digital ads, you can be far more strategic. You can be far more, clear in the market that you want to carve out, and you can send very, very strategic messages to those people. So because of that, digital ads end up being very undervalued right now, and they'll stay undervalued, I say, for probably the next 16 to 24 quarters. So while it's undervalued, you might as well take advantage of it. And the places that I see most undervalued right now are Pinterest. Pinterest with the shoppable pins are still very, very undervalued. You've got Google Ads. Google Ads, since they started their new small business platform, their local services ad program, that was the next generation of AdWords Express. Now the Google Ads local services program is really, really well done, well priced, high converting, very worthwhile looking into if you're trying to get local traffic to your website, or some other call to action that is phone calls or other types of CTAs. LinkedIn is a hugely undervalued ad platform. Most people don't even know that LinkedIn takes ads, but they are there. And so if you go to the LinkedIn ads program, you can do some really flexible advertising within the self-service environment. Twitter, you can just take a single tweet and just promote that tweet within the Twitter ecosystem. And it can be very inexpensive. I actually did that recently for a conference I was hosting, and it was just super easy. I could just take a specific tweet and say, okay, this is the audience I want to show it for. I want to show it for this next 24 hours, and go ahead and promote this tweet. And then voila, you just see the impressions increase as you see the number of times the tweet is shown to the various audiences that you want it to go out to. And then finally, Snapchat. Snapchat used to be you had to talk to an executive. They needed to give approval of every ad, blah, blah, blah. Now, with the self-service platform that Snapchat has created, it has really reduced the price and made it very simple for you to be able to go in and do Snapchat ads. And remember that Snapchat is all about the local ability for you to be able to use the lenses and filters in a local environment and run those Snapchat ads to be able to increase your exposure to the demographic that's primarily on Snapchat, right? So we're talking 13 to 34 or something like that range of audience. You want to really engage them in the ability for you to see what types of content are going to be highest converting for that audience. And again, just pay attention to the snap map and filters and lenses that you can create by yourself using the Snapchat lens creator or whatever it's called. That software allows you to create those tools, and then you can promote those things within the Snapchat ads. So pay attention to the fact that digital ads are still underpriced. So take advantage of them until they get too expensive. And then, of course, the market will have to have some kind of change. Okay, so buy. Next up, I wanted to talk about personalization. And this really comes down to the fact that a lot of business websites today just are not personalized. They're generic. They're basically brochure websites, and that's no longer acceptable. My website's in that same category, by the way. So I'm the pot is calling the kettle black here. I'm not being a hypocrite in the sense that I'm fully aware that one of the major things that we need to do in 2020 at W3 Consulting is really start to modify our website to be able to more highly personalize. Simplest way you can do this is to take the content you currently have on your website and break it up into your fundamental buyer personas. And so a buyer persona is the absolute ideal avatar, the person who you know is going to buy from you and is most idyllic in terms of buying from you. And so you know a lot of features about them. So maybe you have 3 different buyer personas. Well, maybe you would then break up your website into 3 different parts. And right there on the homepage, you're going to talk to those 3 people and say if you're selling textbooks to schools, there are school administrators, so say principals, teachers, and parents. Well, right there on your homepage, you should have 3 big, bold calls to action for those 3 audiences, so that when I click on, if I'm a school principal or school administrator, I click on that button or image, I'm going to be taken into that section of the website, and it's going to talk specifically to my needs and wants. Okay, and that's one way that you can personalize. Another way that you can personalize is by allowing people to sign up and register on a website, and therefore be known to you when they log into your website, and therefore it can literally say things like, "Hi Ray, how are you today?" Because I'm logged into the website, it knows who I am, and therefore is capable of personalizing my experience on the site. Further than that, you can also do all kinds of other kinds of personalization with your social media content and your social ads. So remember that if you can identify, for example, on a website or in social media, that you have a particular audience type, the category of audience is more important necessarily than saying "Hi Ray." So if you know that I am a Washington Nationals fan, which, no offense against anybody, but I'm not necessarily. But I do know that they just won the World Series, and so there are going to be a lot of people who are Washington Nationals fans who are posting all over social media and on the web generally. Well, if you know that some group of your audience are Washington Nationals fans, and you can say that on social media in a way that catches their attention, that's a type of personalizing that you might also want to do on your website. So if you're in Northern Virginia and you know that they're going to be Washington Nationals fans in Northern Virginia, and that's the target you're going after, well, then maybe your website needs to say something about them in some fashion that gives some level of understanding that you understand them. When people are going to websites, they want to be spoken to in a way that makes them feel that you know who they are, you know who you're speaking to, and that's really important. So personalization is absolutely going to be a fundamental game changer for the business that does it well. So think about personalization. Think how you can personalize the website just in these very low touch ways. You can also do this in email, obviously, right? So email comes to segmentation. If I go to your website and I download a specific thing from your website, so I go to your website, it says, "Hey, if you want to gain access to my ebook, sign up for our email newsletter and we'll send you our ebook for free." Well, now I've given you some information. Maybe I gave you my first name and my email address, and by doing so, the system can automatically identify where am I located by my IP address. It can now it has my first name, so the email should then shoot me a message and say, "Hi Ray, thanks so much for visiting our website, and you'd like to sign up for our email newsletter and get our free ebook. Here goes the confirmation button to do so, and you'll get a thank you email with that." When I get the thank you email, you want to really take advantage of now the fact that I have downloaded this ebook. You know why I came to your website, and you know what I did on your website, which is I filled out a form. And now you can say, okay, well, if this ebook was about learning how to meditate, well, now I'm interested in meditation. You know that about me, so you can tag that in your email system as being a segment that when anything is important about meditation that comes across your world, maybe you teach meditation, now you can go ahead and send an email specifically to me that says, "Hi Ray, we recently we know you downloaded our ebook on how to learn to meditate, and recently this came up in the news about how meditation can increase resilience and increase emotional regulation, and we thought you would really like this article. By the way, we're teaching a meditation class next week, and if you're interested in coming to that class, I can give you 15% off, and here goes a link for registry." Now, that's a level of personalization that really makes a lot of sense, because you didn't have to make any real major changes to the website, but you could do all of that in the email marketing software. So think creatively about the technology that you already have invested in and how you can turn that into a personalized experience for potential current and past customers. All right. Next up is one of the most difficult things that's happening in SEO for a lot of people in marketing like myself to kind of help business owners interpret and understand. We are going to what we call a zero-click search. That is, what is called on-SERP SEO. On-SERP SEO for on search engine results page search engine optimization or search engine marketing. Now, which are two different things, but for these purposes, it doesn't matter. So we have zero click. What that means is that a lot of voice search as well as smart home devices, you can now speak to them. And when they speak to you back, they are in essence looking at web pages around the World Wide Web, and they are reading you the rich snippets, the answers to those questions. And that means that if you've done a lot of work to make your website local optimized and you've implemented rich snippets on your website, which I absolutely recommend that you do, that means that Google and Apple, Siri, and the other tools that are out there will, in essence, Amazon's Alexa will, in essence, read the answers, and no one will ever visit your website. So you lose the opportunity to sell to them by virtue of that. What we know is that there needs to be some level of voice or verbal call to action for people when you have a local business that is doing this kind of local search optimization and search engine marketing for voice. So when someone comes to your website, that is Google and primarily comes to your website and indexes your site and is going to read that out to someone with a Google Home or whatnot, when that message is read, you might want to say to them, hey, if you'd like to learn more, or if you're interested in this particular product, come visit us at www.mybusinessname.com. Because you're going to need to now have to verbally call people to act, because they're not actually doing the search in front of a screen. They're getting it in the ambient environment around them, and they may not be thinking about your business ever again because they got the answer that they were looking for. So you've got to start to be creative with regard to zero-click answers. Also, that means that when, say, for example, if you do ask the Google Assistant a question, many times the Google Assistant will say, we've placed this search result in your Google environment. That is the Google space where your searches happen. So if you'd like to learn more, you can always go there and figure it out. Well, if you can manage to get someone through a verbal CTA to remember your website domain and to come to your website, conversion becomes that much more important. You really need to be able to rocket it out the park so that someone doesn't come to your website and then fall through the cracks. And so this is where it's really, really important for you to pay attention to conversion. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but conversion becomes more important when zero-click SEO and on-SERP SEO become really a dominant force. It's already a good minority of searches that are being done. People are just asking their phones, asking their devices for searches to be done. They're pretty low-level searches right now, like what's the weather and how tall is whomever celebrity, fill in the blank, Lizzo. And so, it asks that question, it answers those types of questions, but people are becoming more comfortable with these devices and being able to ask questions by audio. And as that becomes more and more prevalent, you're going to see a lot more of your search diminish for those types of questions. And you need to be able to engage in essence, this zero-click environment where it's just voice, and voice search is the dominant way in which people are searching. Okay, so we've got to move to being able to engage people in an audible call to action that we weren't really paying attention to in the past. And that's not to say that SEO isn't important. It will continue to stay dominant for many years to come. But those who take advantage of zero-click SEO will really see a stronger search engine growth than others. Okay, next up is a space that I've been talking about for quite some time in my public workshops, but I haven't had a chance to actually talk about this in a webinar environment at all. So I wanted to talk about it here because I think it's a really interesting trend. We are now in a space where we're seeing the global populations kind of start to crest, and we're seeing a lot more people becoming more comfortable with their heritage and their ethnic background and so on and so forth, and being very embracing it in their public social environments. You see a lot of influencers out there really talking about their background, and that's actually a long time coming to being public to what we've already known in search engine, the sort of search engine marketing world, which is that a lot of people read the web in their native languages. And you have tools like Google Translate and other things that help to translate websites that are not in native languages, but it's really just more advantageous to you as a business to translate your content into the native language of the people you're trying to reach. So if you pay attention to, say, just in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have probably 100 languages spoken or more just in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And if you know that you're in a particular area of the state where there are a good minority, still a minority, but at some point it will become half the population of people who speak some particular language. What language is that? And should you translate your content to have a part of your website? Basically, your website's just basically your English side and then say your Spanish side, which is the example on screen here. But if you're in, say, Northern Virginia, where you have a Nicaraguan population, an El Salvadoran population, you have a fairly large group of people who are not being spoken to in their own native language. And by doing so, you can dominate local search by putting your content in that language. And so just give it some consideration. I think that those who actually pay attention to this will be able to grow in the search engines more than those who don't pay attention to it. So I just wanted to put that on people's radars in terms of ways that if you already have a good amount of content, you want to take your prime content, the content that best is currently best being allocated by Google as traffic driving content, and you want to go ahead and translate to Spanish, translate to German, French, whatever the language is that you feel like is most predominant in the people or populations that you're trying to reach. So give that some thought. Okay, one thing that I've been paying attention to very closely over the last 6 months is Facebook, and which owns Instagram as well, has been test piloting the idea of removing the likes or the hearts on Instagram posts. And what this means is really a fundamental change in the way in which people understand what is good content. I think this is an appropriate and welcomed change. That is that if someone likes or hearts a piece of content on and across a wide variety of social media, you as the publisher of that content will still be able to see that information, but it won't be publicized. It won't be on the front end, and so other people who are looking at the content won't see it. And I think that's really, really wonderful. I think it's a way in which we can get an idea about engagement on some level, but stop trying to place importance on vanity metrics like likes and follows. And so likes is the first step there of just getting rid of the front end, ego-driven nature of likes and hearts. And then, of course, that means comments become more important. And that's why I wrote the word comments instead of conversation as basically part of the themes for the 2020 decade, so to speak. And I really believe that as we go forward, the more you can engage people in the comments, that is, have a conversation with them, and therefore go out there and do more what I call social listening, right? The idea of going out there, looking for conversations, creating conversations, and engaging in those conversations, the greater your business is going to be. People want to have a conversation with a human. They want brands and people to do business with, and people primarily do business with people. And so personalized brands, that is humanized brands, are going to be the ones that win. And so your ability to go out there and to engage in the comments is going to be more important and powerful than worrying about how many likes you get. And we also know from a search engine perspective that the more, that is the social search engines, so the search engines that run inside of Twitter, inside of Facebook, inside of Instagram, they're paying attention to comments, not likes and hearts, for being able to make content be featured. So the more comments, the more you're going to get featured by Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and otherwise as important content in the way in which the algorithms on those social networks are currently running. So focus on the comments. Comment, engage with people, answer people's questions, create posts that incite conversation, right? Don't incite riots, incite conversation. You want it to really get people to want to have a conversation. And 2020, we're going to see the algorithms probably give even more credence to comments and less credence to likes and hearts and stars and otherwise. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we move forward. Okay, so when I talked about the idea of voice SEO and zero-click SEO and our concerns there, this takes us to kind of the answer to that problem, which is that if, say, at some point we get 50% of all search, maybe 60% of all search is then voice search, and then that other 40% is left to a screen that is a mobile device or a desktop device where we're doing searches and seeing results on a page and clicking on those things through to the website, then what we call conversion rate optimization becomes the absolutely most important thing you need to do to your website over the course of the next several years. And so what conversion rate optimization means is that you have to be able to have something that you want people to do on your website in order to convert them. That is, what is the goal that you want to have on your website, or the goals you want to have on your website when people visit specific types of content? And this is very difficult because you have to give it some really heartfelt thought. You have to say to yourself, okay, when someone lands on my homepage, what do I want them to do? And when someone lands on a piece of internal content, that is, they land on a landing page that you created that has that ebook on it that talks about how to learn how to meditate, well, that piece of content has to be managed. It has to be optimized for conversion very differently than the homepage. And so every page on your website should have some kind of purpose in the conversion journey. That is, what pages do people click on en route to converting? So maybe you want them to download the ebook. Maybe you want them to land on your contact page and fill out the contact form. So that would be the goal. And what we want to do is increase the goal's conversion. That is the success rate of those people landing on your contact page and clicking submit for the form so that you can contact them and start the sales process. But if we're not paying attention to conversion rates on websites, it really doesn't make any sense to have a website at all at that point, because you're just wasting time, energy, and resources on something that purely is doing nothing for you. Because if you get 100 people who come to your website and 0 sales out of that, then you've just literally wasted your time and energy to even build the website. So we need to be able to figure out, okay, if we get 100 people to our website and one person is becoming a customer, that's good. Now let's turn that into 2 people. So for every 100, 2 people become a customer. And then for every 100, we want to increase that to 5, maybe to 10. That's conversion rate optimization, is when we start being able to see for X number of people who come to our website, we can increase the number of people who ultimately become paying customers. So that means turning leads to sales, right? So general traffic, coming to your website, we want to be able to understand which ones are leads, which ones are closer to the middle of the funnel, and ultimately which ones are bottom of the funnel and really ready to buy now. The way that we do this is through what we call A/B testing, primarily. I mean, there's some other ways in which you can do this from instinct and intuition, that is past experience informing your current and future decisions. But the point here is that A/B testing is software that allows you to be able to look at your website and create many different versions of it, and then be able to identify which ones of those versions convert people more. And lo and behold, within the Google Marketing Platform, as Tracy said, I'm the Google Small Business Advisor for productivity, and so I care a lot about Google products, but it's only because they work. And Google gives you a free product called Google Optimize within the Google Marketing Platform. So inside of the Google Marketing Platform, Google Optimize is in what we call a traditional A/B testing tool. Now, it's a little bit of a misnomer, because instead of A/B, it's not just testing one versus another. What A/B testing software like Google Optimize allows you to do is to be able to create hundreds of different versions of your website and test them against each other to see, when someone shows up on your website, which people convert to what for what reason and which ones don't. And therefore, ultimately, you can change your website to be the one that converts the highest and then get rid of the chaff. So you can find the wheat from the chaff. And so A/B testing is going to be really, really important for you to figure out. You do need to understand how to do A/B testing well, even if you have a tool like Google Optimize, but 2020 is your year to figure it out, because if you're not doing conversion rate optimization, as we go to more voice search, as we get a more competitive market, your website's going to become less and less valuable, and website is where sales happens. So if website is where sales happens, and you're not capable of converting people there, you're basically turning yourself into a non-business, right? It's not a not-for-profit; it's a non-business, and that's not a good thing. So conversion rate optimization. I hope that helps. Okay, next up is LinkedIn. I predicted this back in probably 2018, I believe is the right time when I talked about this, but I really could not have understood the impact of Microsoft's purchase of LinkedIn and all of its various properties, that being lynda.com and SlideShare and all of its internal advertising and HR platform and whatnot. But LinkedIn has pretty much dominated the business-to-business social media landscape, and it will continue to do so over the next year. And it has revitalized LinkedIn groups. It's bringing more and more people onto the LinkedIn Live platform, so you'll be able to do live video on the platform. I'll get to some of the other things that I think the platforms are going to be able to do very shortly, but we're really in an amazing space right now where LinkedIn, if you are trying to do any level of B2B, this is the place to really start to create more and more content. It's absolutely where I plan to be putting my time and energy into 2020, is to creating more LinkedIn content. I really haven't done that with W3 Consulting, and with some of the changes in the business, we really believe that LinkedIn is going to be the place where we start to create the most vibrant and vital content, both under my personal brand, my LinkedIn profile, which has been around since pretty much the very early days of LinkedIn. For some of you who don't know, my LinkedIn profile is just Raymond, because I got my first name is my URL, my personal profile URL, and so I've been around LinkedIn a long time and seen its maturation, and now with Microsoft at the helm, really connecting it to the entire Azure and Microsoft Office 365 platform, it's going to be a powerhouse for that B2B environment. Okay, next up is is kind of two sides of the same coin. Facebook has monetized Facebook groups. So if you qualify, you have to do all the things that Facebook says, which is having enough followers and having all the appropriate check boxes filled. You can now implement a private Facebook group where people can pay to be a part of that Facebook group. That by itself is its own business model, right? You can create a community that is branded and within the Facebook environment and get paid for running that community. So that's one side of it. These are the a brand exclusive and paid community. So it's right there on the Facebook platform. The other side to it is that if you cannot qualify for Facebook groups to pay to get a paid community, you can start your own paid community on something like Mighty Networks. And so I have several Mighty Networks now because I've been playing around with the tool and I've been very impressed by it. And so I've created for example, a personal productivity community on Mighty Networks, and it's phenomenal. I'm not charging for it; it's free, but I can charge to make. To have people join as members of the group, and you can fully control these kinds of environments. And so what we're going to see over the next several years, I think 2020 is just really a continuation of this, but the trend is toward people having smaller communities that are more niche. So you can create a brand exclusive and paid community, or a brand exclusive and free community that becomes kind of your fostering. It's like your pool for all of your potential customers and vendors and brand advocates and so on and so forth, to really come together and have a conversation. And then over time, those people then go from being just followers and fans and conversationalists to then being a part of your true community, which are your paid customers. So really give some consideration to the brand exclusive and paid community concept over into 2020 and beyond. And so this brings us to one of the biggest things in social media to happen in 2019, which is that stories have come into their own. They have matured into a vibrant and mainstay piece of content marketing. And so, Snapchat created it, the idea, but Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Reels are all stories type tools. And so you have to have enough followers in order to be able to do it on YouTube, but you can do them on Instagram and Facebook at any level. And what this is typically a portrait style photo or video, where you can put many of them together, just one or many of them together in a short period of time. So there's usually a 24-hour time frame where those stay up and then they disappear over time. But really, it's about the narrative. It's about the story you're telling about your brand, and you should really be taking advantage of it. It's now this really nice ephemeral and FOMO-oriented type of media that you can create, and it can be engaging. So this is really where you can create engaging content, and I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But you can create these engaging types of content that your audience is looking for, and because of FOMO, fear of missing out, they will want to look for your content when it shows up at the top of their Instagram feed. They see the little stories, or if they show up in their feed as they scroll through YouTube, they're going to see those things fairly prominently and interact and engage with them. And so stories are a really great way for you to be able to do that level of either vlogging or just story narrative that you want to tell about the brand. So this brings us to kind of the video portion of my discussion. I just want to spend a few minutes. We've heard so much about this, but again, continuing on what I talked about last year into this year, live video is going to be a huge star of 2020 marketing because people are just very bullish on the notion of using video. And I think live video is probably the most important of the next three types of videos I'm going to talk about: live video, short form, and long form. And so really consider how you're going to start doing live video. There's Facebook Live, there's Instagram Live, there's YouTube Live, there is Twitter Live, which is basically Periscope, which allows not only video but also audio only version. So don't even think about that from a it'll make your head hurt. But but Twitter's audio only Twitter Live is actually really, really powerful. It shows a little waveform and you can go live without video, but it's actually a type of video that you're streaming. And so really start to think about all the ways in which you can use live video in your business that doesn't require a whole lot of production value, just has to have good audio and good signal and good audio so that you give a good audible quality to people listening, good audio quality to people listening, and it can be really great. So live video is definitely something that you have to pay attention to. Next is short form video. So once upon a time there was Vine, which was owned by Twitter and pretty much sunsetted. And then we now have today TikTok. And TikTok is this very popular Chinese-owned social media platform that has come onto the sort of zeitgeist of U.S. consumers. And so lots of people are using these short video format posts to engage their audiences, and you should definitely look into it. It's obviously for a younger audience right now, but we see a broad variety of general audience users, and as it becomes more popular, more people are going to use it. There's a little bit of hiccup here about, is a Chinese-owned social media company, should it really have particular types of data and otherwise, and that kind of thing. But generally, as a business, you're publishing content for general consumption. There shouldn't be any real issue with you publishing publicly that content. It's just another distribution channel. So if you're creating live video or long form video that I'm going to talk about next, you can just cut that up and put it onto TikTok. And if it's appropriate for the platform, you can really get high engagement. Then we have long form video, and I jokingly put up Gone with the Wind, but the idea here is that long form video is going nowhere. It currently, I think, commands about a quarter of all video content, and it's things like this, a webinar, where you're going to sit down and you're going to really invest in watching video. This is not only live video, you're watching it live, but those of you who are watching in the replay are now watching long form video, and you're watching it at your own pace in your own time. And so YouTube has all these types of video formats, short form, mid form video, and long form video. But long form video is really an important place that I think a lot of business owners, because people focus so much on short video. You want to be people have short attention spans and all of this kind of mythos around short video, which is powerful and very popular. Long form video is also actually very important for being able to get across a brand message that is more powerful than can be fit into 1 minute or 2 minute long videos. So the 2 minute video is important for its purpose, but long form video is maybe a step above, where you do long form video once people have graduated from several of your 2 minute videos. Maybe they go to mid-form and then go to long form. But consider how long form video is really making its way into your marketing strategy in 2020. Okay, then we have interactive content. And as I talked about before, you have these stories formats, which allow for you to be able to create all kinds of interactive content. You can put polls in your Instagram stories. You can ask questions. And really, what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on doing a Q&A with the W3 Consulting Instagram profile and across Twitter and other places. Just start asking lots of questions of our audiences across those platforms, and then doing live videos to answer those questions. And I think that's just one way in which our education mission-driven company is capable of creating a lot of really great content that can then be sliced and diced and put up in all kinds of other places. The audio can be ripped for podcasts. The video can be placed long-term onto YouTube as well. We can create a lot of content generated just from what our users want, UGC, user-generated content. The comments that hopefully will come from being able to create this type of interactive content will actually generate a lot of the other content that we decide to make. And so think about ways in which you can just set up a quiz on your website. Google Forms allows you to create a quiz. You have lots of tools that allow you to be able to create quizzes, Poll Daddy and otherwise, and you can create calendars. You can obviously create ebooks that have kind of like a workbook feel to them, where people can send you parts of their answers along the way. You can do email courses where people sign up on your website for a 30-day cleanse, and they can send you their feedback, their experiences and challenges and questions as they get the new emails every day throughout their 30-day cleanse. So you could do contests with Gleam.io. You can do a lot of really, really cool stuff. Calculators are so powerful. With WordPress and some plugins, you can create a calculator for pricing estimates, and that really engages people in a way that otherwise wouldn't happen if you didn't have that type of interactivity. And in years past, I've pretty much downplayed interactive content from text, video, audio, and image-based content, the 5 types of content. Well, the 5th one was interactive, and I pretty much downplayed that. Today, now the technology is so pervasive that it's almost negligent not to put some type of interactive content into play on your websites and in your social media. Okay, just blasting through these last few I wanted to cover. One is that I think, just like digital advertising, micro-influencers in your communities, people who have small, very, very loyal followers, are being undervalued, and you need to go out there and start finding those people and really going ahead and engaging them in being able to influence them. So if you have someone who's a super book nerd in your community and they have 100 followers who are super book nerds themselves, well, if you have a local bookstore, guess what you need to do? You need to engage that super book nerd in being able to help bring their 100 book nerds to your local bookstore. And so many times people kind of can't get their head wrapped around that, but there are platforms for being able to manage these types of local influencer or just influencer marketing arrangements. But you could just also open a conversation with them and say, write them a DM and say, hey, a private message, and just say, hey, I noticed that your community overlaps with my customers. We'd love to figure out how to make that a mutually beneficial relationship. So look at micro-influencers. And I can't help myself. I'm just finishing up a book called Podcasting for Small Business with my co-author Steve Orr, and podcasters are really going to benefit in 2020 because we're about to hit $1 billion in ad revenue across the industry. It's probably it's probably more than that, even though that's the number people are looking for it to hit. But podcasting has been huge and will continue to be huge because audio is so powerful. Honestly, if we just took off the entire webinar screen and just was my audio, you would have gotten 95% of the value of this audio, maybe even more than that. Understand the power of audio in being able to communicate information. And you as a small business owner, if you're capable of conveying information in audio, which is all of you, podcasting is really, really important. So that mean that you don't start a podcast. Maybe you just become a podcast guest on a lot of podcasts. But it also means that you may want to start a podcast and think about how to engage people in audio across the platform. What I mean here as podcasters prosper across channels is that we need to stop thinking about podcasting as the traditional style of podcasting. That is, someone has a podcasting app and they download your audio to their local system and they walk away from their computer and their internet access, and then they have this locally downloaded file that they listen to. That is great, and it's actually the primary way in which I listen to podcasts. I'm old school. But podcasters can stream to YouTube, and they're on Spotify, and they're on iHeartRadio and radio.com and all kinds of other platforms, Pandora and otherwise. People are really shirking the old thoughts about podcasts, and now it's just basically on-demand shows that people listen to. And those on-demand audio shows are going to prosper when podcasters distribute across many, many channels. So if you're a podcaster or you're thinking about launching a podcast, don't hold yourself up to not putting it on YouTube or not putting it onto Pandora or not putting it onto another platform, because the more people who listen, if you have value in your podcast, that's hopefully going to give them a greater reason to listen to your call to action in the audio to do what you want them to do. So just think about that in terms of going forward into 2020. In summary, I just wanted to cover a couple of really important pieces that I might not have talked about here today. Obviously, the theme for 2020 and beyond, I really believe, is going to be moments, conversation, that is comments, and community. So really pay attention to how you're dealing with those micro moments, what people do when they need to know, go, do, or buy. Engage people in the comments and create your own community. Learn how to establish the community where you're listening, speaking, and connecting with people who care about you, people who give a damn. And branding matters. And so this is something that I didn't have a time to talk about here, but really, whether that's personal branding or business branding, they all make a difference to the business itself, especially in small business. So start getting your verbal, visual, and emotional marketing pieces in sync. They need to be consistent and they need to be clear so that you can have people understand what you stand for. Then understand that conversion is greater than influence, which is greater than engagement. And so whenever we think about an engagement, likes and comments, those are great. But remember that influence is more important than engagement, in the sense that I want someone to do something, then I want to be able to get them to do that thing greater than otherwise. And then finally, conversion, which is them actually doing that thing that I want them to do. So I can persuade them on a greater level to go do that thing. Great. Now, are they actually doing it, right? When they say they're going to do something, that's great. Are they actually converting and doing the thing that I want into sales? And then last but not least is that 2020 is going to bring probably some legislative a heartache, or at least indigestion for a lot of businesses across the states. And so I would really recommend that you think about your digital marketing and you think about privacy and security as synonymous going into 2020. There is absolutely no way that we're not going to see more states take on a further, a stronger stance in data breach laws, in cybersecurity laws that are going to create more regulation and more, rules for you to have to create greater levels of security on your website, in your email, in all of your data transmissions with customers. And the more kind of progressive you are with basically taking a proactive view in privacy and security, both the better marketing look, it's just good for your brand to be marketing your privacy and security efforts, but it also make everybody more secure, which can't be a bad thing. So really consider that going into 2020. And so with that, I'm going to put up my final slide. I know we're beyond time, so I want to give Tracy the opportunity for us to close out, and I'm happy to answer any other questions people have.
Great, thanks, Ray. I'm going to go ahead and close out. Thank you all for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. I've also posted it in the chat window if you would like to fill it out now. We have not published our webinar schedule for 2020, so check back in January for our new schedule. I know that there were at least a couple of questions and they have disappeared from my question window, so I'm not sure how that happened. So if anyone had typed a question, if you could retype it, I would appreciate it. Right now we do not have any questions. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. Otherwise, thank you all for attending today.
So I can see the questions, Tracy. So I have one here that says, have you ever taken this is Kip saying, have you ever taken a devil's advocate approach to social media marketing? In his city, local council members are vigorously supporting and promoting the use of public funds for casino without a full and open discussion of the cons as well as the pros. As I listened to your presentation today, the impression I got is that you've fully invested yourself the future of digital marketing without ever stopping to consider whether it is really good for commerce and society in general. How would you respond? So to Kip, I would absolutely say that there's a good side and bad side to almost everything. Candy is a pleasure until you have too much candy. Water is great. Potable water, especially, is great until you drown in it. The reality is that we have the ability to use the technology that is given to us in an appropriate way, and maybe that requires society to grow up, and we will figure out how to use all the technologies that are around us well over time. You have to kind of get sick on the candy before you realize that moderation is good. And so while I don't know the appropriateness of the situation in your locality, I do fully recognize that small businesses, by and large, are not doing social media well. And so by coming to webinars like this, I hope that people learn a little bit more about how to use it well. In my opinion, I believe that using social media to build strong community, and if you listen to any of the 100+ hours of webinar that we have in the archives, you'll get an understanding of what I mean by building a community and how important that is to having a strong business. And that's the right way to do social media, and it's going to be the most effective way to do social media going into the future.
We do have another question. Can you speak a little bit about the relationship between digital content and local hands-on guerrilla marketing, strategies and guidance for linking those up, or links or resources where we can dive deeper there?
Sure. So when we talk about the idea between digital content marketing and the idea of traditional, guerrilla marketing, I see very little difference between them today. I believe that what we should be doing is mixing and matching those strategies in a way that makes it most effective for your business. So there's no real way to say there's a one size fits all. You should do these types of content marketing strategies, and you should do these types of guerrilla marketing strategies, and you're going to be a super success. I would recommend that you just stay in touch and watch the webinars. I've talked a lot about a lot of these tactics throughout many of the webinars in the archive, and they're all recorded and they're free to watch. And then look for other types of outlets that put out that kind of content. So I know that Hootsuite has a great blog that talks about a lot of these things. I know that HubSpot as well, they put out a lot of really great content in that regard, and really do talk about those things. And while I really dislike the term, if you look at the growth hackers space, like if you type in growth hacking into really anywhere and find blogs on growth hacking, those are typically guerrilla marketing tactics with a digital bent, and most often than not, they're just tactical. They're not really strategic. And so I really try to stay on a strategy level and then dive into the tactics that fit the strategy. So really pay attention to the fact that have a strategy in mind, and then you can use these guerrilla marketing tactics as necessary to be able to get in front of your audiences when they're necessary. It was just like taking advantage of TikTok. That's totally tactical, right? That's not a huge strategy. You really need to pay attention to the strategy to be able to say, okay, well, if TikTok is the demographic we're trying to get in front of, the people on TikTok, then we need to be able to use that tactic appropriately right now while it's doing it, right? Digital ads, undervalued, take advantage of that. That's guerrilla marketing at its finest, well, guerrilla advertising, I suppose, but we're going to take advantage of it while we have the opportunity to do it, and we're going to be really incisive about the ads we're going to run, and then we're going to get out of that market when ads get too expensive. So really pay attention to the overlap of those two pieces, but hopefully you can find some information in the archives, and I believe Tracy just put a link to that to the archives in the comments.
I did, and anybody that didn't see that, the archives can be found on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. I think that's all the questions we have today. Thank you, Ray, and thank you everyone for participating. We'll see you all in early 2020.